Hello, I'm Emily Rutherford-Liska, and welcome to the Jacksonville History Show. I'm here today with Taryn Rodriguez-Bodie, who's the Associate Director and the Archivist for the Jacksonville Historical Society. Welcome, Taryn. Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
To gather some time out of the office. And what we're going to talk about today is just an amazing collection in the archives of the Jacksonville Historical Society, because that is the most important thing we do, archive the city's history. And this collection is related to the Great Depression, which you know and I know began in late 1929, and that depression,
yes.
and lasted for more than a decade, just over a decade, technically, and researchers look at it many ways. But a great legacy came from this very depressed period in American history, and that legacy was left behind for historians like you, and I'd like to say like me, and all of us. And this was some of the work that resulted from the Work Progress Administration, a federal project. And from this project, one of the highlights was an arm of this project, the Federal Writers Project. And there was a Federal Writers Project in Florida, and you're going to talk about one piece of that Writers Project and sort of bring us up to date on this rare collection we have at the Jacksonville Historical Society associated with the Federal Writers Project in Florida.
Well, the Federal Writers Project was throughout the United States. It was a period in time in which the government realizes that they had the opportunity of hiring all of these wonderful literary artists, writers that were unemployed. So they take this group of people throughout the United States and they hire them to go out and document what's happening in the state at that point. And one of the things that they want to document is the folklore of each of the states. And each of the units in every state had an African-American component to it, because they realized that never again they were going to be able to go and interview people that had been former slaves. Here, the Federal Writers Project is based in Jacksonville for the whole state of Florida, and their Nigra Unit is based at the Clara White Mission that was run by Eartha White.
And we're going to show the woman who actually ran that. Oh, okay, you're going to keep going.
Yes, the unit was run by Carita Doggett Course, and Dr. Course had a PhD in history, and she was a native of Jacksonville, and she had great zest for the people of the Florida, and she wanted to document everyone. So she has her office here in Jacksonville. And as I said, the African-American unit, which was called the Nigra Unit.
And she was very supportive of that unit.
She was very supportive. They give her enough money to hire 200 people, and she could hire 10 African-Americans. And she actually went and hired 10 African-Americans. But as we are all aware, the Congress starts cutting money, and she actually ends with 3 or 4 African-Americans that are going to go out throughout the whole state and document. And what she did, she went and hired people from different communities. And in Jacksonville, she hired a woman called Viola Muse. And Viola Muse is a college grad. She is married to a lawyer, and I find her in the Jacksonville City directories first as a hairdresser in the 1920s. She had married Mr. Muse in sometime in the 1920s.
And he was an attorney.
He was an attorney. She was born in Alabama. So that's when I first find them here in Jacksonville. And he was a native of Jacksonville. But I find her in the city directories as a hairdresser. And she appears as a hairdresser for about 10 years, which meant that, as we all know today, you talk to your hairdresser like if it was a friend. So she knows these stories already. She just has to go and actually sit down with the person and write it. And we have her collection of notes, and it's the Depression, so she uses all kinds of little scraps of paper to write these notes, including the Florida Emergency Project had these little forms, and she cuts them in two and makes notes in each of the forms, and then she numbers every single page. So that's how we are able to keep track of her collection, because she has numbers, so she's very organized.
And this is particularly remarkable because most of the collections all through the state were edited.
Yes.
And in this case, we have her personal notes and a full collection of original information.
Exactly. Whatever interviews they made were sent then to the white editors, and the editors never invited the black people that were doing the interviews to sit at the editors' meetings. So they will be edited, and as we all know, the Jim Crow laws were in force. There was a paternalistic look at the African American community, and all of that is shown in the edited part of this report. But we have the raw material. We have Mrs. Muse interviews and her insights, because what I discovered when I started reading through the collection was that she made wonderful introductions to the people that she interviewed. And as I told you, I was doing research for her. I was trying to find her through the city of Jacksonville, and I find out that her husband was a lawyer, as we said before, and he had his office at the Masonic Building.
And that building still stands today in Jacksonville on Broad Street.
Yes.
And it's quite an extraordinary building, and that was an all African American contracted and it was used by African Americans.
Yes,
that building.
Exactly. It was not only a lodge, but it was used as offices, and Mr. Muse had his law office there for many, many years. And this is in the neighborhood of La Villa, where she is going to go and interview all these people. And her boss at the Nigra Unit was Sola Near Hurston. And Miss Hurston was here. Her parents were from Jacksonville. She did not live in the city. But Mrs. Muse writes a biographical sketch of Zora, and is part of these papers. She also writes a biographical sketch of James Weldon Johnson.
Probably two of the most famous Floridians
Exactly.
in our state's history, or among them, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what is so interesting is that she writes this very candidly, handwritten. We have her notes. So it's wonderful that she has the foresight to document these people that are so important to the African American community.
Now, we have all this information left behind by her, but what we don't have yet is an image of her. We don't know what she looked like.
No, we don't know what she looked like. We do know that the Muse were here from Florida. We know that they're buried at the Riverside Memorial Cemetery. And we would love to find their family and have them give us a photo of Viola and her husband. One of the things she did was she documented people throughout La Villa. So we have some beautiful photos in our collections, not part of the Viola Muse collection, but in the collection of the Jacksonville Historical Society of La Villa. So we see buildings like the Strand, and we see the Swinging Times. La Villa was considered the Harlem of the South. It was the center of culture for the African American community. There were wonderful, interesting people living here, just like Charlie Singleton, that you know was the lyricist for
The Stars.
The Stars.
Yes.
He wrote the words for Strangers in the Night and Spanish Eyes, which I think is wonderful that he's from
And
Jacksonville.
I've always been taken, everyone called him Charlie Haas, and I've always been taken with the fact that he not only wrote for Frank Sinatra, he wrote for the Beatles. So this
Yes.
man was our local famous songwriter,
He was.
lyricist.
And as you know, La Villa was also not only the African American community, but there were a lot of immigrants that lived in La Villa, including the Cubans. There was a lot of Cubans and a lot of Hispanics that lived there. We see also that the Hungarians, Tony's Place, they had a supermarket or a grocery store. They're immigrants. They are in La Villa. But Mrs. Muse concentrates not on these immigrants, but on the African American community, which she is a part of. She has been hairdresser. She has a college degree. We know that she ran the kindergarten. And she goes and interviews many of the former slaves that lived in La Villa. But not only did she interview them, she also goes in the schools and collects poems that the children are writing in 6th grade, collects wonderful, wonderful drawings that they make. So the collection is not only of the adults that live in La Villa in 1936, but it's also of the children that are living there.
And I have heard some of the slave narratives, because it was done in time. This was remarkable that there was that opportunity to talk with African Americans who'd been part of slavery and had been slaves, and their stories are riveting. They truly are. And you're talking about the poetry that she captured from the children. We probably have just enough time to read one of those poems if you have it there.
Yes, this is written by Dorothy Lambert. She was 11 in 1936, and it's called Seasons. When the budding trees are swaying and the mother birds are swinging and you hear the laughter ringing, then you know it's spring. When you hear the banjos drumming and you hear the drum beats humming, springs and brooklets seem to murmur, let's be happy, it is summer.
So nice, and that was by a child in one of the African American schools. Thank you for working so diligently to save this one-of-a-kind collection. And quickly, can you tell us how the collection came to the Jacksonville Historical Society? Because we take collections of all types pertinent to Jacksonville, Florida, these rare, wonderful collections of materials and objects.
The collection came to the Historical Society in 1987, and it was donated by Carla Kors, which we assume is related to Dr. Kors. And as you say, we take collections. The archives are open to the public Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays from 10 to 5:30, and we would love to see everyone that is interested in the Jacksonville Historical Society and the history of Jacksonville to come and visit.
Thank you so much, Taryn, for being with us, telling us about this incredible collection. And for now, I want to thank University of North Florida, the students in the communication department, and thank you for being with us, because we are history. Thanks.